Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Must Read Alaska Show, coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. We are the best place in Alaska for conservative news, and we're standing up for your constitutional rights as Americans and your freedom to live, work, and play here on the last frontier, where we still think freedom matters. I want to thank everyone who reads Must Read Alaska, whether it's at mustreadalaska.com or the newsletter, or if you share our content on Facebook when it's up and running, or if you're listening to this podcast, thank you so much. John Quick is taking the day off in Nikiski to take care of some business. And Scott, you're here in East Anchorage. So what's on your mind today?
Well, I can tell you this. I am looking out in the mountains. They look beautiful. It's a gorgeous day in East Anchorage. And what's on my mind? Well, I was just talking to you guys about this prior to getting on. It feels a lot like I'm living in the Mystery Science Theater realm, because I have been glued to my couch with my wife. Believe it or not, these are what we call date nights from now on, because we're in the world of politics. And so we've been watching on YouTube the assembly meetings that have been going on regarding this AO 2021-91 or the masking mandate. And it has, listen, I wish we had a camera for me and my wife, because I feel like we've got some great commentary on what's going on, both at the assembly level in terms of what we're seeing from there, as well as the public level. And it's been a lot of fun. Listen, date nights are a little different nowadays, but I really do feel like it's a lot of fun. And if you haven't tried it, my recommendation is this week, because it's going to happen. We're going to have a lot of testimony. Get yourself some popcorn, maybe some lemonade if you're needing to hydrate, maybe some water. Sit down on that couch, get yourself nice and comfy, maybe a blanket. It's going to get cold. And once you go ahead, you can even put it on mute if you want to every now and then. And just in your mind, start to dream up what's being said on both sides of the table there. And I tell you what, it is a lovely pastime. I kid you not.
It is. And you know, the thing about it is you can really pack on the pounds eating that popcorn while you're watching the Anchorage Assembly. Now, do you watch it on TV or do you watch it on your YouTube channel?
Listen, I'm a little sophisticated, Suzanne. I don't know if you know that about me, but I'm a highbrow kind of guy. So I watch it on the YouTube app on Apple TV on my TV.
Oh, okay.
I get the full ambiance.
See, I don't even own a TV. And so I know that you can go to Channel 9 and watch things on TV. And I'm just not one of those people. I don't have a TV. So I watched it on YouTube on my laptop. But you're very sophisticated. Now, if everybody wants to watch the Anchorage Assembly, you can watch the hearing tonight on the Meg Zaletel's mask mandate. And this is from Anchorage Assemblywoman Meg Zaletel, who wants everyone in Anchorage who's over the age of 2 to put on a mask and sit down and shut up, because she is afraid of you spreading COVID around. And that hearing started it technically started Thursday, but they filibustered the evening so long, but they didn't get to that hearing until everybody was asleep. And so they only had about 10 minutes worth of testimony. And then it continued Wednesday and Thursday, and then they took the weekend off, and the hearing continues today at 5 o'clock, 5 to 10, and they may extend it because there's a lot of people who have been waiting. They've been waiting 15 hours in line there. They line up, and they just can't get through these lines of people who are eager to testify on this. Almost all of the testimony has been against it, except for the first day when they packed the room full of doctors and nurses from Providence who said, we're in absolute crisis mode. If you don't mask everybody, we're going to die. It was just pitiful. It was the worst kind of medical theater I've ever seen. But that's what I'll be doing at 5 o'clock. And so let's get on with our show, though. We have a great guest, and we want to talk about Meg Zaletel a little bit with our guest, because our guest is Russell Biggs. And Russell Biggs is the person who fostered and raised up the Recall Meg Zaletel initiative, so that we are actually going to have a chance to recall Meg Zaletel off of the Anchorage Assembly. And Russell, I think you're with us, right?
I'm here.
Oh, great. Well, it's been a long journey to get her recalled, and she's had a lot of things that she's done since this journey started. I know you've had to have a lot of legal, legal sort of things that have gone on in court and back and forth, the different filings that you've had to actually be able to get to the ballot. And I think people do need to know that this just didn't start this summer with her being awful and this particular mask mandate. This started over a year ago when what did she do that was so egregious?
Oh, well, I think, going back to what Scott was talking about, we're actually in the third act of the summer's biggest disaster movie, I think is the way I would put it. This whole started back in July when the Assembly as a group basically—
July of which year?
Last year. So we're well into it. We're well into, it was in July 2020. The Assembly, as you remember, had been gifted this huge amount of CARES Act money. And in the final deliberations of that, they decided that the danger of COVID was so great that the public could no longer be allowed to be in the chambers, even though under the current emergency mandates, they had the ability to allow at least 15 people. That was under the Berkowitz mandates at that time. So they kicked all the public out. There was a lot of grandstanding and soliloquies as they passed that diversion of about $20 million of CARES Act money. So at that point, the original recall language we wrote was for a violation of the Alaska Open Meetings Act. And I'm going to tell you why that's important here in just a second. But Barbara Jones, the municipal clerk, improperly denied, in my mind, that we didn't actually take that all the way to the court, but improperly denied that recall petition. So we submitted another one on a second event that happened about a month later, where the Assembly blew through the emergency mandates again, clear violation of the law. They conducted a meeting with more people in the room than was allowed by the mandates. And so we submitted a second recall petition that was again denied by Barbara Jones as a municipal clerk. And that one we fought all the way through Superior Court and won. The Assembly then, or not the Assembly, the municipality and Meg Zaletel appealed that to the Supreme Court and lost. So we won twice. Very clear case. We were actually the quickest winning Supreme Court case in Alaska history, I was told. I don't know if that's 100%.
I did not know that. That is pretty good. Well, you had a slam dunk case. I mean, if for instance, at this point, the Supreme Court saying, look, the law is not that clear. If a elected officer gets up in the morning and puts on one blue shoe and one brown shoe, that's evidence of incompetence. You can recall them. I mean, any reason at this point.
Yeah, that's true. But in this case, it was interesting because the Muni argued in court that obeying the law, I'm paraphrasing this a little, but not much, basically that obeying the law is not a specific duty of an Assembly person.
Ooh, they said that, huh?
Yeah, that was Ruth Botstein made that claim in a Supreme Court. Which, if you ever get a chance to go to the Supreme Court, highly entertaining, was totally worth the afternoon. But they made that claim, and Justice Carney's eyes went up about as far as they could. There was a long pause, very uncomfortable silence, and and that was the best part of that day for me, was watching that go down. But anyway, we won. It took about 2 hours. We won their appeal, and then we proceeded with the petition signature gathering at that point.
That was this summer.
Yeah, so that it was almost a year's delay to get it to this point. And the reason that's, obviously that's important is because things have changed with COVID. We had a decrease in case counts during the summer, and now they're going back up again, just like they did last fall with the mask mandates in place. But an acting mayor at that point, rather than a duly elected mayor, Dave Bronson, this round. So what we're seeing now, I think, is a really interesting amalgamation of several different political forces driving the actions that you're seeing in the Anchorage Assembly right now. The mask mandate, Meg's mask mandate, being probably the most important one on the short term, but actually the next resolution that they're going to, I'm assuming, immediately debate after this mask mandate, it passes, which I'm pretty sure it's going to pass, is the ability for the Assembly to control the meetings resolution. So I think I forget the actual number on that, but that's actually, believe it or not, probably a more consequential resolution that a lot of people don't understand the consequences of. And the consequences of that is that they'll.
So basically what that is for our listeners is, and this is, we're talking to Russell Biggs, who has been the force behind getting Meg Zaletel to the recall ballot that's going out on Tuesday or Wednesday. It'll be mailed out from the clerk's office. Of course, this is the same clerk that denied him his first application, denied him his second application, and he had to go all the way to the Supreme Court. But this is this other ordinance that they have basically says that any room that they occupy, they control entirely the rules of that room and in any municipal building. Normally they meet in the Wilder Marston Theater in the Lusac Library, but sometimes they meet at City Hall in a conference room. So they can basically control who can come in and who can come out. And that is really declaring war on the executive branch, because the executive branch is in charge of all operations and maintenance of all buildings in the municipality. So interesting.
Yeah. And that's, I think, again, the idea behind that resolution is to control the narrative even more than they've tried so far. What I was going to say about the Alaska Open Meetings Act was, and I don't know if a lot of people caught this the other day, but in that second night of testimony, there was an exchange between Patrick Burke when they were talking about whether or not they could have the meeting continued on a Saturday and use, I think it was the Microsoft Teams. It was a very short interchange where they asked them specifically, can we do this? And
do we have the technology on Saturday? Do we have somebody to run the cameras? Do we have somebody to run the sound system? And then do we have the security and police force for Saturday? Because that's all overtime.
Right. So that was part of it. And then and the municipal attorney specifically said that the lawsuit that they are facing with the Alaska for Open Meetings, he was giving his legal advice that they shouldn't do that. And the reason he used was basically almost verbatim from the initial hearing a year ago during that court case, the court hearing with Alaska for Open Meetings, where Mario, who was, and I'm totally blanking on his last name right now.
Mario Bird, the attorney.
Yeah, Bird. Yeah, correct. Mario Bird concluded his statements by saying that whatever that the reading of the Alaska Open Meetings law, whatever types of inclusion that is provided to the Assembly should also be provided to the public. So that was the reading. And that's not what happened last summer. So no. Again, our conclusion last summer was that we had a really good chance of winning a petition recall, but again, it was improperly denied, but we didn't pursue that one because the other one was more clear. But that was a pretty good tell that, in my mind, that the municipality is going to lose that court case because Mr. Burke was very clear that the people that were involved in that open meetings lawsuit had strongly cautioned the municipality as putting themselves in that position again. So I kind of feel like the writing's on the wall for that lawsuit. They're either going to settle that, or they're probably going to lose it in court. And there's a lot riding on that. I mean, there's some massive consequences if they lose that case.
Okay, I'm going to start paying attention to that. I'm going to have to do a follow-up on that. You reminded me that is an ordinance that they put out there, which is that they will control the functions of all rooms that they occupy for their meetings, which means that they can say, even if the mayor hasn't had an executive order on numbers of people that may gather, that they can say how many people can come into their meetings. And that's what got them in trouble in the first place, is limiting the number of people who could come in and watch them do very, very big things, like take ARPA money, the Alaska, the CARES Act money, and start spending it on this massive homeless infrastructure program that they had, where they bought this couple of hotels, and they had a couple other things they were going to buy, like the Tudor Road Alaska Club and the Beans Cafe building. They're going to buy all of this and create this massive network to help homeless people, which they didn't even have a plan for it. They just were going to buy the buildings, and if we build it, they will come, kind of a thing. Right. So Russell, we're now at, there's one more ordinance that they have besides that one, and it's they've got one more big ordinance that they've got coming up, and I can't remember what it is, but it's also in the same meeting. And so I'll have to dig into that. And I don't know, Scott, do you remember what the third ordinance is that they are working on, or is it just?
No, I can't think of it off the top of my head. As you were talking about it, I was trying to remember, because it was a rather big deal. It was another reach to control some power there. Maybe I could percolate off the top of my head while we continue, but I can't think of it right now.
Question, like, why are they so intent on passing that, right? So I went from a casual, disinterested observer to a very active participant in this process. And so when you ask yourself, like, why are they so involved in trying to limit the amount of public access and narrative? And I think what we're seeing play out in the last couple of nights is a great example of why that is. If you think globally, the Biden administration is trying very hard to pass a $3 trillion infrastructure bill that's going to bring more money to Alaska and more money to Anchorage. That's going to get divvied out to the usual suspects, and in that case, it's going to be the same people that benefited over the last year with having this hard left progressive assembly pay out that money to, in the initial instance, to the property owners that were politically connected. It's going to be a lot of union money. And that's what we're seeing happen with the Zaletel recall now.
Let's talk about that, because I just looked on APOC, on the Alaska Public Offices Commission, and it looks like the Meg Zaletel people are they're rolling in money. She started with about $60,000 worth of local union money, but I just saw that they got a $75,000 gift from New York and who was that from?
Yeah, so that was from a political action committee called the Unite Here, which is a union for hoteliers, I believe. But yeah, so a single donation of $70,000 of New York money being funneled into Alaska through Joelle Hall and Kimberly Hayes with the AFL-CIO, in addition to the Putting Alaskan First Committee, which was another $20,000 of money. So $90,000 of complete special interest money into a local assembly race is insane. That is an insane amount of money for an election that's decided by basically 10,000 people. So why are they doing that? Because there's so much money riding on this in the next year, in the next maybe 6 months. That's what's driving all that. And just like it drove, that was why it was so important for Felix Rivera to also get $100,000 of California money and special interest money, because that money from the federal government now was going to be divvied out by those same players. Also, I feel like that's again a large reason for why Austin Quinn Davis it was so important for them not to let go of that seat and have a proper election after even Berkowitz sat down, because they as long as they had basically a unvetoable, there was no reason to veto, because you had a mayor that was going to go along, an acting mayor that was going to go along with everything that the assembly was trying to push. But that was, in retrospect, well, not even in retrospect, at the time I said that too, but now that's just been proven.
Yeah, and I just thought of the third item, which is also on this agenda, which they haven't been able to get to. And folks, by the way, at 5:00 on Monday, if you're listening to it on Monday, that hearing continues on the mask mandate that Meg Zaletel and her people are looking to put into place. It is a ordinance. They say if this mayor is not going to make an ordinance that everyone in Anchorage must be masked, then we'll make it a law. We will make it a law that if he vetoes the law, we have enough people to override the law. And what will happen, of course, if you can move one of those seats off, like Meg Zaletel's, you might be able to get a group on the assembly that would be able to, he could have a veto proof, an override proof veto. In other words, right now they can override anything he vetoes. And that could change in time. It might change, for instance, if she is recalled on the 26th of October, then do they appoint somebody temporarily to that seat, or is that seat vacant until there's a special election?
Gosh, given their history, I think they would come up with any reason not to do that, right? I mean, we had no mayor and not only that, we had no district representation for Austin Quinn Davison's district for that entire
8 months.
For 8 months, yeah, that's insane. And again, when you look at when you watch the assembly meetings over the last couple nights, and if you were not somebody that was aware of what's been happening for the last year and a half, and you watch it and you're like, why are these people so angry? Well, that's why they're angry. I mean, they have a right to be angry.
They're furious.
They have lost the ability to elect their leaders. They have been obstructed multiple times trying to remove their leaders. It's the whole no representation. It's like, why should you trust the people that are doing that to you? And those people have a real reason and right to be angry.
So we go up to the 26th. They may decide that they're just going to let it ride and let that position go vacant until next April, when the regular election happens, because this is exactly the same timing, because he left office, Mayor Berkowitz left office around the third week of October in 2020. And then Austin Quinn Davison, as the chair of the assembly, stepped into that role as acting mayor at that point. And then many people tried to get a special election for her district, West Anchorage, and they postponed it. They said, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to go ahead and let it ride. You guys don't have anybody in there. You've got Austin Quinn Davison. Don't worry, she's the acting mayor. She'll look out for you, which was really improper. So it's hard to say. This seat could be unfilled for some time, or maybe they'll decide to go ahead and have a special election, and they'll ask Mr. Zaletel to run or something like that.
Well, ironically, they poo-pooed the idea of a special election because they said it was going to be too expensive to actually elect.
But they fought in court. They spent all that money in court, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. So in the meantime, they spend $500,000 on earnest money for an Alaska club purchase that they knew the mayor was not going to accept, and they obstructed a valid recall petition that, clear under case law, was they were going to lose in the Supreme Court. They had to have known that, and that's now why we have to pay for a special election, a special recall election, because they obstructed that all the way to the Supreme Court, and all the hundreds of thousands, $100,000 of legal fees that was involved in that too. So speaking out of both sides of their mouth. It's only too expensive when it's inconvenient for your politics. I mean, that's again one of the reasons that you're seeing so much vitriol in the assembly chambers, because people are tired of being lied to, and I think the veil has been lifted pretty clearly that what the public is being told on multiple fronts is so tainted by politics right now that they can't trust them anymore. They can't be trusted.
That's right. And go ahead, Scott. I hear your voice there.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, that doesn't surprise me, because when your defense for not having a recall is, well, assembly members aren't supposed to follow the law, I would say you've already kind of got the mindset going. I have a question for you, just as a general, and you may or may not be the answer to this, but is the assembly not understanding that eventually the powers that they're giving themselves they're not going to be in office forever. And the assembly could sway back to a more conservative, right-leaning assembly. And then what? So do you think they're looking long-term, or are they just right now, it's here and now, there's a ton of money, we need to grab it, we need to get it, so we're gonna bend, break, circumvent every rule, law, ordinance, or charter to get what we need now? Because to me, Russell, it feels like this is a short-term play with no viewpoint for the long term.
I think there's definitely some truth to that. The alternative take on that, if you look at it from a slightly different lens, is that, you know, you've got a group of people, and I'll give you one example, that have funneled $1.2 million of CARES Act money or relief money to the Alaska Black Caucus under the cover of COVID outreach. So that money is seed money, and I just saw. So the Alaska Black Caucus was given that money specifically for COVID outreach. And if you go to the website and see so far, which we're now into it probably 4, 5, 6 months, they've come out, I think maybe a total of 4 times on their Facebook page to say they support vaccination. So there's your COVID outreach. And that, oh, by the way, at our vaccination support clinic that we're having, we're also going to do a get out the vote at the same time, right? So
yeah,
that money is, I believe, was completely improperly used for that particular. I mean, we have a health department for a reason, and you're giving a clearly political organization 1/10 of the sum of the health department budget under cover of COVID. And the best thing that we've got so far is a couple of Zoom meetings and 4 Facebook statements that say, hey, you should go. Well, not actually 4, just one that said you should really go get vaccinated. So, you know, again, all that money is has been distributed, and that money is going to probably, you know, ferment, and it's going to make the political mechanism much more stronger for the folks that are involved in that. On that side. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there definitely is the side of that where if the tides really turn, some of that legislative power will probably be used against them as well.
So you've got the Recall Meg Zaletel group. It's a small group. I guess you're probably the chair of it. I haven't taken a look at who's all involved, but you've got, you can get donations there, and people can actually help you get this word out to all the neighborhoods, because really it's only this one district. It's from about Rogers Park down to Abbott Road, and then over to what is it, to C Street, or does it go up to? It goes up to part of Spenard. So it's Midtown. It's a big Midtown area.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird, like, it doesn't really follow the geography as you would expect, but that's about correct. It's about a 50,000 citizen district, so it's a big town that goes all the way down.
So how many voters are in that district, though?
About 50. Well, 50,000 people. I don't know how many of those are registered. I know historically the seats have been decided by very, very thin margins, usually around 10,000 to 12,000 people voting. So I mean, clearly it's a outsized influence when you get $70,000 coming into an election that only 10,000 people are voting on.
That's a good point.
You can see the problems with that. Yeah. Well,
in the Felix Rivera recall, in that one, there is the same general boundaries, isn't it?
Exactly.
And so I thought was interesting about that is that the city clerk, Barbara Jones, she allowed Felix Rivera to have a completely glowing statement about all the great things he had done, ignoring the charges against him. And he didn't even mention that in his statement on the ballot. And he looked like the perfectly wonderful person. And of course, he won that recall election. I assume that she will do the same thing. I haven't seen the ballot language yet. She hasn't revealed it to anybody, but it'll be in the mail in the next couple of days. So we'll be able to see that. We'll be able to know exactly what she allowed Meg Zaletel to say about herself. But what has ensued in the meantime, of course, is that Meg Zaletel has ridiculously put forward an ordinance, a law saying all people, children on up to age 110, have to wear masks whenever they're in a public place. And this with I just looked today, falling case counts. Our case counts are dropping through the floor. And also part of that is because some of the way the state was logging those recent high case counts is because they were playing catch up with the data. And we'll be writing a story about that later on today on Must Read Alaska. But your group, tell me the name of your group and how they can donate.
Well, the full name of the group is We've Had Enough. Vote Yes, Recall Zaletel. And you can find our website is recallzaletel.com. You can help financially for sure. We've got door knockers hopefully going out this week. We can have a small phone bank, but we're not a we're completely good grassroots.
You truly are grassroots. Now Ethan Burkers would say that you are AstroTurf, but you're truly grassroots. You're outspent by this New York unions that are coming in to rescue Meg Zaletel, but this is David and Goliath. And so people want to help. They can go to Recall. Say it again.
Recallzaletel.com. Yeah.
.com.
And like say, even small amounts of money help. And that's the quandary that we're in, is that it's the widow's mite, to use the Bible reference to that. Even a small amount of money makes a big difference for morale. Like the number of people that are supporting our group is very important. The amount of money also supporting the group is very important. But I think from a political movement sort of standpoint, having a popular vote and people that want to get involved in something like this to actually fight back, regardless of the outcome. I mean, that's really where we're at as conservatives. If you believe that we should be supporting other conservatives, even if you don't think you're going to win, you should still do it. I mean, that's the bottom line. You should get involved because it's not going to change by itself.
Right. Well, I understand, though, that the cavalry is on the way and there's going to be a lot of help coming your way and a lot of volunteers coming your way. And I hope that materializes very shortly, because I know you want to get the word out on Facebook. Well, now that Facebook is back up and running, because they had a major outage, but they're up and running again. And then, you've got door knockers, and you probably need some volunteers to go and take those around as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We can take all the help. And there's a way to connect on the website for that stuff too.
For volunteers as well. Very good. Well, we really appreciate you having you on your show and wish you all the luck and all the best, and think that your involvement in this political process has been ginormous for Anchorage. You've done a lot to make people aware of what's really going on. I mean, I'm not sure that people would be aware had you not stepped out of your comfort zone and gone this far to say, enough, we've had enough, which is the name of your group. And I want to thank you for that. And we'll catch up with you in a few weeks to find out how it's going, because again, people will be getting their ballots this week and they will need to fill them out and mail them back. And the deadline is going to be, they have to be received in the mail by the 26th, I believe, Correct. Of October. Very good. We'll catch back up with you soon. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today on Must Read Alaska. Our time is out. And for the rest of the week, please just go to mustreadalaska.com. Check us out on the newsletter, where you can sign up there at the website. And Scott Levesque, thank you for all you do as the producer of this show. You are a rock star. You make it all come together. And we're really proud of having you on our team. So if you'd like to support the conservative side of the news, be sure to hit that donate button on the right side. And your support allows this project to stay strong, independent, and thoughtful. And if you're done with the liberal news media, well, like we are, thanks for being with us today. Until then, we're signing off from somewhere in Alaska.